Hey everybody, it's Rothbard's Disciple here. I'm bringing you guys another video on Bitcoin. Today we're going to be talking about something that keeps getting brought up by a bunch of people who watch my videos, and they're saying like, oh, you don't understand Electron Cash, SLP. The way you're trying to create your tokens isn't the way you're supposed to on Electron Cash SLP. And that's true, but the reason's very simple. The way that you're supposed to create your tokens on Electron Cash SLP, it breaks every problem, every major problem, I should say, that Bitcoin solves. So Bitcoin solves a couple major problems, and a lot of people like to lie about what Bitcoin does and what Bitcoin is. So this might be a good refresher for you guys because Bitcoin does some specific things and it solves a very specific thousand-year-old problem. Which most of you, I guess, probably don't even remember Bitcoin solving. But if you want to if you want to refresh on this, the best refresh would be Mike Maloney's video. His video actually talks about how he doesn't believe in Bitcoin, but he believes in something called the Hedera hash graph, or he just believes in hash graph. Hash graphs, they're not. I don't want to go into details here, but I guess I'll just say I think Mike Maloney is wrong on his main point of this whole video, but he's got a short segment here at around the 4 minutes and 30-second mark that explains the Byzantine generals problem. That's the best explanation of it that I've ever seen. Just so you guys know, the Byzantine generals problem was a long problem, I guess you could say, in philosophical thought. I don't know exactly, it'd be like military philosophy, I guess. I don't really know. But it was just there's just the question of like, hey, let's say you're a general in the Byzantine army, and you've got to plan some attack on some city, and you're trying to coordinate with another general. When you're sending messages to this other general, how do you know that the messages that the other general receives haven't been altered? And there's no way to actually guarantee this because even if you try to set up like a messenger, like a second messenger to make sure your first messenger or makes it to the general and gives him the message, like anyone could intercept your messenger and intercept the message. Um, they could do all sorts of things, but there's no way for you to guarantee that your message has actually made it. And so this is just a big problem. It's why spies exist. The whole 9 yards. But there's no way for you to guarantee that your message has made it. Now, Bitcoin actually solves the Byzantine generals problem because within Bitcoin, in order to send a message, when you send a message in order or before that message gets confirmed in a block, and a message within Bitcoin is just a transaction, but in order for that message to be confirmed in a block, it's got to be added to the Merkle root. And within the Merkle root, like when you put a transaction or a message within the Merkle root, it makes it very easy for the user to verify whether or not their message has been included in that block. And now the thing about Bitcoin that actually solves the Byzantine generals problem, though, is the proof of work, because when you're checking to see whether or not your message is in the block, you will arrive at a final root hash that you can add to a nonce, and there's a couple other things like a version number, Bitcoin's version number, but uh, you'll make a block header, and this block header, again, usually I don't know what it is, it's a couple hundred bytes, but anyways, when you hash the contents of the block header, you should have a hash with a lot of leading zeros. Now, in order to get a hash with that many leading zeros, you have to waste a massive amount of hash power, okay? And so this is how Bitcoin solves the Byzantine generals problem, because it says not only is your message contained within this Merkle tree, um, but in order for this Merkle tree to exist, someone had to waste enough hash power to find a hash of the block header contents that would have enough leading zeros in order to make a Bitcoin block, or meet the requirements to make a Bitcoin block. So you can mathematically figure out how much it costs to modify your message. Now, another little thing I'd like to add is there's always a stupid question that people ask on why is proof of stake inferior to proof of work? Well, because proof of stake doesn't actually solve the Byzantine generals problem, and proof of work does, just for people who have forgotten. But to get into Electron Cash SLP, because again, what we're talking about today is how Electron Cash SLP breaks Bitcoin and reintroduces all of the fundamental problems that Bitcoin solves. It's actually this document URL thing here that everyone kept saying, oh no, if you wanted to put your data, uh, like if you wanted to have a contract that people could see for your token, you'd put it on a URL or a website. And this is retarded because, just so you guys know, the internet is a medium which existed before Bitcoin, and everything before Bitcoin, like the Byzantine generals problem, was not solved before Bitcoin. Okay, so you've got uh, you've got this token system now where you're using Bitcoin, and again, Bitcoin has solved the Byzantine generals problem, but it's asking you take your token, the contract for your token, and again, the contract is the legally binding bit, so it's the super fucking important part. And it's saying, hey, when you're trying to send this legally binding contract to people, let's use a medium that has not solved the Byzantine generals problem. Okay, this is fucking retarded because again, if you put it on a website, not only could the website operator screw over the people who come to the website by not serving them the right website, you know, you could give the website operator can serve them a false website, and they can do this selectively at will, so they could target specific users to screw over if they wanted to. Not only that, but somebody can hack the website and then they can screw over the users. Okay, and there's no, like, if you just give them a website, there's no way to know from the token details itself whether or not the website is valid. And we went through this before. Again, if you're using the document hash, you could use a document hash to say, hey, this is the valid version of the website, but then you can never update the website. And there's no such thing as a website that does not update. So that's not a valid option. Okay, so you know, neither option works. Now, if you look at the reverse of this and you go back to the way that I was saying that it would be done, which would be with hashes, again, um, you would just have one hash on associated with a token, and that one hash would have all the contract details. And again, every single user would have the relevant details from the contract included with, or it would generally speaking get sent to them. Like when you get sent a receipt, that's what, or like when you go to the grocery store and they give you a receipt, that's exactly what they're talking about. And I'm sure you guys heard that. But anyways, uh, yeah, so whenever you buy something, they'll give you the relevant part of the contract, and that's just what did you buy here today, and then it would probably include on the receipt, like here's the transaction hash of um, the our Bitcoin transaction that includes the token document that is the contract, or that has the contract for the goods you bought here today. And again, the hash is 32 bytes, so it's very easy to put on any sort of receipt. It's super simple, and it costs absolutely nothing. So again, you've got two options, which is the option that I said, and everyone responds, "Oh, you're retarded for trying to do it that way. Electron Cash SLP gives you a different option. It allows you to use URLs." And it's like, yeah, you can use URLs, but then you've just broken the Byzantine generals problem, which is a thousand-year-old problem that Bitcoin solved. It's like I don't know why you guys think that's a good way to do it. The next thing again that we want to talk about, and I've mentioned this before, but it's just the double spend problem. The double spend problem is really simple. If you're trying to transact digital or electronic tokens or electronic coins using a chain of digital signatures, which again, this is exactly what SLP does. If these tokens have value, people can try and double spend the coins, okay? And the only way to stop people from double spending the coins is through confirming them in blocks. And um, although it's true that tokens will be confirmed in the Bitcoin transactions, you don't actually have nodes that are really checking for weird stuff happening within or with your tokens here. You don't have miners for your specific tokens that are being created, which really makes it weird because Bitcoin again solves the double spend problem. Now, the double spend problem, as we've seen with the Bitcoin Cash and BTC split, or Bitcoin SegWit and Bitcoin Cash split, um, we've seen that it even comes down to whether or not you can do zero confirmation transactions, and obviously tokens you can't without miners, and it gets like I don't know. You are always going to do or have less double spend protection using tokens than using Bitcoin. So it just or it doesn't beg the question. It raises the question: why on earth are people creating tokens of value when by definition Bitcoin is better at transacting for or for use cases where you need a token of value? Bitcoin by definition is better. So they're reintroducing the double spend problem. There are ways to mitigate it, and they sort of do try to mitigate it, but again, like, why? This problem was already solved. Why reintroduce it just to solve it again, but not solve it as well? One of the next points that I want to talk about is they've created an entirely new address scheme within Electron Cash SLP. This isn't necessarily a negative, but it's just a question of why. Okay, so you've already got your own address schemes within Bitcoin, and part of this, I guess, probably comes down to the fact that they're creating tokens of value, but if you have token schemes, which again I'm going to show you guys my own token scheme that I've created, that I've engineered. I guess I can't really code it because my coding skills are pretty poor, so I wouldn't actually be able to create it into wallet software. I can do some things with my coding abilities, but I'm more of an engineer rather than a coder, and obviously the people who created Bitcoin Cash or Electron Cash SLP, they're coders but not engineers. But anyways, you already have Bitcoin, which has its own address system. Why not just use its address system and say, oh hey, if I'm sending tokens to this person, you're already creating a transaction. You just say it's from this address that I already have that's already involved in the transaction to the other address that's involved in the transaction. It's really not that difficult. Um, yeah, I don't know. This one really irritates me to a large extent because if you really want to create good token systems, you're generally speaking like the way you're using your own Bitcoin addresses is super important, and I feel like by creating these simple ledger with their own signature scheme, so it's got its own like new address sort of like, so you're actually sending it to simple ledger addresses rather than just Bitcoin Cash addresses. That's a big negative, and I don't see like within the scheme I've created, the addresses are super important, and this just seems to, I don't know. From a user perspective, when you look at this, you start thinking about tokens wrong, and you don't understand what you're missing by not thinking about them in terms of Bitcoin Cash addresses rather than the simple ledger one. And obviously, you can switch it to the show Bitcoin Cash address. But my question is, why does the simple ledger address exist even in the first place? Anyways, like I said, I do have my own token protocol that I'm going to show you guys. It's not like I'm not a coder, so I can't actually create it into wallet software. It wouldn't be safe for me to do, even though I do know a little bit about password hashing, and I have created a couple programs which have somewhat safe, like, user authentication. I'm not really good with GUIs though, but anyways, I will show you guys that protocol to show you guys how simple it is to actually create a token protocol that works, that does not break any of Bitcoin's internal, or it doesn't break any of the things that are integral to what Bitcoin does. It actually scales better than Electron Cash SLP, and we avoid a lot of the stupid issues that Electron Cash SLP has in terms of like whitelisting people the way, like, I don't know, I don't know if you guys have been sent any just random Electron Cash SLP tokens, but I had been, and it's really weird. And I didn't even receive some of the weird ones. But there are some serious problems with just automatically accepting all tokens from everybody, which Electron Cash SLP does. And then there's some serious problems of not sort of creating um, your own, like the way you're supposed to create token systems is the way you create the internet to a certain extent. And people always talk about Bitcoin as the internet of money, but they never try to build it like the internet of money. So if you look at the internet's actually an interconnected web of completely centralized server or like no, computer networks. Like my home network that I'm on is a complete dictatorial network of me and, maybe the CIA agent who watches over me if he wants to get access to my computer, some hacker. But yeah, whoever controls a computer network, they have complete dictatorial control. And so the network or the internet is just a connection of all of these dictatorial and completely centralized computer networks. Okay, and so that's what makes the internet decentralized. So within Bitcoin, what you need your own centralized, complete dictatorial centralized networks within Bitcoin itself. And these centralized dictatorial networks should be pretty similar to the overall big network, which in this case is Bitcoin, in just the same way that the internet, the big network is very similar to a private network. It's just the big network connects the private networks. It's a really simple thing, and I'll show you guys that in a later video. It just really bothers me that everybody says all this shit, and then everything that you guys do is the exact opposite of what you say, and everybody does it, and nobody, like, I don't know. This shit has to stop.